Hello and welcome. Happy to be here again to talk through your comments and questions, and one I noticed just before sitting down, which wasn't one for reply, but it came to my attention, so I'll just talk about it quickly, was that the comment was how pointless all this dressing up, lighting candles. I think it was relating to my morning puja, which is live every day at 6 a.m, where we simply reflect on the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, spend a short time in meditation together, and share some blessings, just some encouragement for well-being throughout that day. I'll let the train pass. And their comment was, all this shaving of heads and dressing up and doing that is a waste of time, and people can get there anyway, and anyone following this stuff is going in the wrong direction. Well, indeed, I'm not agreeing, I'm not disagreeing, but whatever form we take is irrespective of what practice we partake in. If we're keeping precepts, practicing meditation and developing wisdom, that is developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states, then lay people, however they dress, whatever they're doing, as long as it falls within those parameters of the Noble Eightfold Path, moral virtue, keeping the 5 precepts, that is, and that they're practicing meditation, yes indeed, will just as equally have the ability to progress happily on the path towards Nibbana. But very much the process of getting closer and closer to liberation, freedom from suffering within this lifetime, is one of realization, something we call nibbida, which is disenchantment with worldly things. Excuse me? I think it's just the candle fizzing. I was checking nothing was catching a light. And that disenchantment with worldly things is reflected in how we carry out our daily activities, how we behave, what we are interested in doing, and ultimately might lead to renunciation. So this dressing up is not dressing up, it's dressing down. I challenge that commenter, subscriber, to grab a bed sheet one morning, no other clothes, wrap that around himself and go off about his daily activities without having done anything to his hair or anything like that, and see how he feels. He'll feel quite humiliated. He certainly won't feel dressed up or important in any respect. It's very much a path of renunciation once you've established this quality of nibbida, this disenchantment with worldly gains, worldly pleasures, worldly things. So we're actually renouncing those that take this form. The shaving of the head is because in the time of the Buddha, it was the lowest form of social placement. The outcasts or criminals would have their heads shaven primarily for purposes of cleanliness, because then bugs and lice and fleas have not so much to nest in, house in, and it's easier to keep that individual clean. But also as indicative of their renunciation of any privilege in life, because hair and hairdos throughout the ages have been quite a indication of self, of personality, your outward portrayal. What do we see after all in anyone? We reflect on this as newly ordained bhikkhus. We're given the little mantra of hair of the body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin, which is now I've forgotten the little Pali word, so it doesn't matter. But if you think of it, this is what we see in any individual, their outward appearance. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin. So beards and beautiful skin on the face and big hairdos and long fingernails and all of these things that people aspire to are outward projections of what they believe to be themselves. This form is taking away all of that. We're not. The Buddha suggested in the precepts, the 8 precepts, these are our guidelines for a more intense practice. You could take 8 precepts instead of just the 5 precepts, maybe once a week or once a month. When you refrain from eating in the afternoon, you refrain from entertainment, and you refrain from makeup, beautification, anything to enhance one's appearance. You forget about that. Stay in your pajamas, or nightgowns, or whatever one wears, and relax. Leave your hair in a hairnet or curlers or a bun or whatever. No makeup, and don't care about how you. As long as you're clean, this is all that matters. And this is the nature of this practice. So it's far from the religiosity and dressing up that this particular comment was alluding to in this particular form of Buddhism, that is. So the first comment, proper, so to speak. I'm having a question about chanting. Usually, I really appreciate it in many reasons. Trying to just check the time. Yes. I have a tendency to go on for a long time sometimes when I'm enjoying talking about your comments and answering these questions, well, to the best of my ability. Anyway, I'm having a question about chanting. Usually I really appreciate it in many reasons, but sometimes there are days when I don't feel connected. Sometimes I'm stopping during the morning chant. For example, on those days, should strict go on or follow my feeling and accept and stop it? It's if you're chanting along, then and you're not feeling it, you're not enjoying it, then don't do anything that isn't conducive to a feeling of enjoyment and well-being. But if you're sitting and just enjoying that time as an opportunity to just listen and sit and meditate, then you've designated that period of time for sitting in meditation. If the sound aspect of that particular morning session is not conducive to that, turn that off, but maybe have some other form of timer. Use that time wisely, is what I'm saying. So yeah, you're not always going to feel like chanting along. Living in monasteries where you're expected to go along to the morning chanting and evening chanting each day, or most days, whenever you can, you should be able to. Your time is free enough. You might have feelings, I had feelings, I can't be bothered with this, I'd rather just stay in my room or in my kuti and meditate now. But when you get there and you join in, you reluctantly sometimes, you start to enjoy it and you see the benefit of it. If you're understanding what the words mean and what you're reflecting on, it's not worship, it's not prayer, then you are invigorated, you're revitalized, and it adds some energy to that practice. It also breaks up the day. The purpose of this first thing in the morning or last thing at night kind of chanting session is to warm up for the day or to cool down for the evening, for the night, to get going or to settle, to really invigorate or to calm. It has both effects. But if it's not working in any of those respects, then revert to simple meditation. This is always the go-to default. There are also different forms of chanting you might prefer to listen to that sound more to what you're used to or what you enjoy. We all have different tastes in music, and there's no fixed style of Buddhist chanting, it varies, and you may have some that you prefer to others. But firstly, stick with it a little bit and see how those feelings may come and go. This is observation of mental emotions and physical feelings, noticing their impermanence, which is anicca, and noticing your dissatisfaction with those feelings, which is dukkha, and seeing clearly how out of control they are, which is anatta. So if anything, it's that exercise alone which is so valuable to begin your day. So this was an email, but suggested for this this part of this talking session here. So I'm including it here. It's headed Asmimana and Atwada. Atavada, it's spelt, so, which is correct spelling. Asmimana and Atavada, pronounced wada. But anyway, this means ego, asmimana. Sort of the closest kind of translation to that is sort of a personality, an ego, or a self-inflated version of your self-view. And Atawada means soul. So it's headed that, and I'm not sure why, because it doesn't really relate to the question. What is the difference between conceit, I am, and the self-view? So I suppose I can see where you relate those two other Pali words, but the Pali words for conceit would be ahankara. You might have heard ahankara mamankara, me making, my making. So conceit is, that's the closest word I can think of that comes to the word of conceit. Believing you are better than someone else, others, worse than others, or equal to others. Any form of opinion of you as a person, as a self, if you like, by comparison to others as people, as selves, themselves. And what is the difference between that, conceit, and conceit is one of the final and last of the fetters, they are the ties to rebirth, that we, when becoming an arahant, are able to cut away, abandon, along with anger. So, you know, these are very hard fetters, defilements to cut away, abandon, because they're right in the fourth stage of enlightenment, up until the fourth stage of enlightenment, before becoming an arahant. These are still there, present. And self-view, Sakkaya Ditthi, is just a personality view. So the Pali words for I am, conceit, you say I am, would be ahankara, but self-view is Sakkaya Ditthi, and Sakkaya Ditthi, self-view, is one of the first of the fetters to be cut away, abandoned. A Sotapanna no longer believes that they are the five khandhas, that is, this physical body and this thinking brain, or broken down into the five components, the body, or rupa, its feelings, or the feelings, vedana, the perception of those and that, which is sanya, the mental formations resulting from those and that, sankhara, and finally vijnana, which is sense consciousness, which is mental or the physical, the thinking brain's awareness, consciousness of those other four aspects of this physical body and thinking brain. Put together, we call the khandhas, the aggregates that make us up. People whom think they are that, and what it's dressed in, how its hair is, how its fingernails are, how the eyes are looking, and the skin, and the uniform or the form that they take, the clothes they're wearing, their gender, their nationality, their economic status, all of these factors, if they believe that is them, that is personality view. Now, as you can see from now educated Buddhists here listening, and even new people coming to this channel can see quite quickly how unimportant all that is when you're looking at the goal being nibbana, which is freedom from those five khandhas, freedom from suffering in this lifetime resulting from attachment to the body, to the idea of self, seeing the principle of anatta, not self. So this is the first, one of the first of the fetters, Sakkaya Ditthi, that is cut off, that is abandoned as a Sotapanna. So that's the difference. Conceit is quite hard to get rid of, because even as a Sotapanna, one is going to always have comparison to others. as not necessarily considered, as in with your asmimana word. I have to keep looking at it because they're not commonly used words, or attawada, because that means ego. That is conceit, but usually only of a positive nature, thinking you are better than. Whereas the true Buddhist conceit, or principle of conceit, is even comparing yourselves as equal to. This has to be abandoned, and is only done so through established practice and really coming to understand, and not only not self, but that however good you are, even as approaching an arahant, as a non-returner, an anagami, then you are on the third stage of enlightenment. You might still compare yourself to your teachers even. You might compare yourself to others. Even the Buddha or the Buddha's noble disciples. But this is some form of comparison to what you know, which is not yet attained, which is not yet liberated, which is not yet free from suffering in this lifetime and in a permanent state of nibbana. That is only what you're comparing. What goes or attains to the mind, the citta, having been conditioned and attaining to nibbana, is cut off, has abandoned that too, and therefore that final fetter of conceit. Can you explain how exactly can we explore our hateful thinking when we are meditating? When I meditate, I try to focus on the breath, not on greed or hateful thoughts. Can you explain? So I think you might have misunderstood something I said, or I didn't say it very clearly, but no, you don't practice meditation. This isn't meditation exploring your hateful thinking, knowing maybe thoughts that are coming up, whether they're thoughts of kindness or thoughts of hatred, and knowing their persistence or their temporary nature, coming and going, knowing this. Don't explore, don't open them up, don't go into detail, you're meditating. This is not meditation, that is thinking, and we're looking to reduce thinking to no thinking at all ultimately, in jhana. So yeah, when you meditate, just focus on the breath and don't be thinking about hateful thinking. So I can't explain why, and I've led you to think that I meant that. Oh, here we go. Here's the shortened version of the comment I've seen. How does shaving your hair off and wearing a sheet stained to a specific colour make you any different to anything? No, it doesn't. And it's not stained to a specific colour. It doesn't really matter. So I think I've just explained that. We're wearing the simplest form, going back to the time of the Buddha, that was available then and has traditionally carried on. But it can be in any form you take. It's not going to make you any different as a personality or a person, yourself, or to any others. It is just the form we have taken to represent renunciation. And you can try walking around for 24 hours in wherever you live and see how it feels. You'll certainly achieve a lot from doing that. Maybe you'll feel what it means to bring yourself down to wearing what is simply like a toga. It helps you with this letting go. So that's how it helps, but it doesn't make you any different. You're only different by what you achieve, by your practice, by cutting off. So Sakkaya Ditthi, personality view, by reducing sensual desire, reducing aversion, ill will, eventually really cutting off and eradicating anger and conceit. This gradual reduction in the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, lobha, dosa, moha, is the aim of our practice. And that is what makes you different to anyone else whom isn't endeavouring to do that. Many or most people are trying to satisfy their greed or even fuel hatred in some cases. And certainly delusion is not eradicated by intellectual understanding, by an accumulation of knowledge, but it is eradicated by coming to an understanding of the true nature of things. So delusion in itself is very hard to see, but if you think by reading lots of books, this will help you eradicate delusion, that is delusion in itself. It won't help. You have to understand experientially through your own efforts that what you're doing to eradicate or reduce unwholesome mind states and to increase wholesome mind states is helping you see clearly the true nature of existence and become a more content individual that's happier as a result of that contentment, better to be around other people and more accepting of others. So it's not making you putting a wall or a barrier between you and others, it's integrating you by being a nicer person. And that's not making you different to anything or anyone, it's just doing something or letting go of things that are unnecessary to be doing in order to allow others to join you or you to join them without friction, without conflict, and being able to develop qualities of loving kindness towards others, qualities of compassion, of joy, and equanimity, that is being undisturbed by things you don't disagree with, but understanding and accepting, being able to help where you can, and just that, not making yourself suffer as a result of trying to change what cannot be changed, but to accept the way things are sometimes in order that you can help yourself, but by that way also help others. Okay. How long were you a lay person studying / practicing Buddhism before you decided to take the next step of renunciation and ordination? So I began practicing, so really you could get a lot of that from reading the description, the fuller description, not under this video, but in the channel description page. I think if you click at the bottom of this about, it leads you to the channel description page or the channel. Go to the main channel and whatever, you have to click more to open it up, I think, I'm not sure. But that's got the full details. It's a very short summary of my life in there, really. How long were you practicing or studying Buddhism before you decided to take the step of renunciation and ordination? So I ordained eventually in 2020, which was delayed a little bit, but I started practicing in 2012, started practicing meditation in 2012, 2011, 2012, and researching and studying Buddhism, and really firmly dedicated myself to the practice around 2015. But even then I'd begun to slowly start towards renouncing worldly life, developing this, I call it a quality because it is really nibbida, quality of nibbida, of disenchantment with worldly things and seeing the benefits in a simple life practice, a minimalistic life that I'd already developed. So it was a gradual process. I can't say there's a specific time before I took the step of renunciation. I didn't on one particular day say, right now I'm going to renounce everything. I gradually got rid of things as I realized I didn't need them until I had nothing. And by 2017, after various trips away and trips to India, I was living in a van, just alone on a beach in the UK, but also traveling between there and Thailand from time to time for a few years. So you could say from 2012 to 2015, that's 3 years of just studying and practicing Buddhism, and then renunciation from 15 until 20, and then I ordained in 2020. Was there a turning point in your life that sparked the decision? Yes, I realized that contentment only came through renunciation as opposed to acquisition. I'd spent a life up until then, up until about 2012 to 2015, trying to get more and more, achieve more and more, do more and more, have more and more holidays, relationships, all the nice trappings of life, and enjoying myself and trying to find fun and all of this. And in the usual ways, sensual gratification. And there came a point where I found that that was never satisfying anything. There was a constant itch that could not be scratched. So through this practice of meditation, through coming to understand the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, through a gradual introduction to it, firstly in meditation and then into the teachings of the Buddha, which support meditation, I found renunciation brought about contentment, and a contentment which led to true happiness that acquisition didn't. That was the turning point, and that happened around 2015, 16, 17. Or did you slowly build your practice before it was obvious next step? So yeah, that answers that, doesn't it? It was a slow progression. There does come a time when you finally decide that you're going to become ordained, and I did decide this about 2016, 17, but then various family responsibilities and things that I had to wind up and sort out myself caused various delays, and then world factors like COVID and things got a little bit in the way, but not too much. I was able to get to India. It wasn't my first plan, but it was good that it resulted in that, because I eventually ordained in India, which was ultimately what I would have chosen to have done given that opportunity. But I wouldn't have been given that opportunity if there weren't obstacles in the way preventing me going back to Thailand, where I'd originally planned to ordain. Okay. How much attainment awakening can a layperson achieve, do you think, or does the Buddha mention? So indeed, I think I've just mentioned this also. Yes, I mean, as much as anyone else, but as you progress towards enlightenment, you will see the benefit in renunciation, and ultimately it is more often than not that an anagami, so someone approaching arahant, the fourth stage of enlightenment, someone who's become a sotapanna, first stage, and sakadagami, once returner, anagami, non-returner, I might have got them the wrong way around, I'm not sure, and arahant, these are just labels, you know, but an arahant is someone whom has fully eradicated greed, hatred and delusion. They're not going to want to remain as a layperson or need to remain as a layperson. They can, without doing or saying anything, just accept that they're not going to be going to work, for instance. They're not going to be earning a living. They're going to be happy to rely on the support. And the best environment for that is the Sangha, is as an ordained monk. So someone of that developed practice, amount of development in their practice, would naturally ordain. So you'll find in the suttas, and also what the Buddha mentions, is that it's a case that usually, having attained to arahantship, you would only survive 7 days before ordaining, it's said. So that's what the Buddha says about it. But this is to illustrate the point that without that inclination for worldly existence, one would just sit in samadhi until you attain to parinibbana, unless you were supported by lay people and the Sangha, your fellow monks, to continue and therefore be able to practice and teach and share the Dharma with others as a monk or a nun. But lay people everyone starts as a lay person, and you can attain to any level, or you can attain to Nibbana. It just might be that you have to become a monk or a nun on the way. What are the precepts on music that you follow as a monk? So monks can't listen to music, or you refrain from entertainment is the precept. So you ask specific questions. Can a monk whistle? No. Or is that unmonkly? It's just considered, we don't play music, sing, dance, and whistling would be considered as part of that, I should think. We don't play musical instruments. Are you allowed to hum or chant musically? No. When you say allowed, the principle of precepts, the principle of the Vinaya even, which is thousands of guidelines for our code of conduct, but specifically 227 rules, we call them. And you might say allowed, or are you forbidden from? But it isn't really that. It's the Buddha's suggestions for a more fruitful practice. The Buddha's suggestions for a way to support that practice, to be more fruitful. There are no police going around saying, you have broken this law. It is a heinous crime for a monk to hum or whistle. I banish you to eternity in hell. This would not happen. If you find yourself accidentally humming a tune, it really doesn't matter. Other than you realize you've been distracted from mindfulness and a tune has come into your head and your reaction has been to hum or to sing or to whistle. Now, this probably wouldn't happen as a monk because you've been keeping the 8 precepts for so long. But if it did, you just would share that with another monk or your teacher and just make the determination not to entertain yourself or others or listen or partake in entertainment from herein after. So it's not really such an allowed or forbidden or rule dogmatic structure, but suggestions for fruitful practice. Fruitful practice. Are you allowed to hum, blah, blah, blah? Do monks chant Om very often? I'm not sure where that sort of chanting practice originated from. Yeah, no, not in this tradition, in Theravada Buddhism. I think in the Tibetan or the Vajrayana type schools, northern schools of Buddhism, they have Om Mani Padme Hum, and various chants like that. But I don't chant that. There's no need or purpose for that. How do you deal with pains and discomfort while sitting meditation? Well, you just note that they come and they go. It's part of the body. Do Buddhists have any sort of traditional stretching or preparation of the body like yoga or the sort? No, not particularly. I mean, individual monks might do various things depending on their physical well-being. Really, we practice sitting and walking meditation. And actually, the activity of getting from here, where I'm sitting now, to the standing position might seem like very little. But when you live sitting on the floor and you're getting up and down quite a few times in any one day, that's quite a substantial amount of exercise. Walking on Pindapata, which we are obliged to do, is supportive of our practice each and every day, several kilometers in the heat, carrying lots of heavy stuff, is physical exercise. Walking meditation is recommended for physical well-being and exercise, and a break in sitting meditation. That should be enough. If you're living like that, then you're living in accordance with the instructions and suggestions of the Buddha, then that is enough. There's no other regimes necessary. And if you doubt me, if you think it's still necessary to go to the gym, come and stay here or nearby. My son, who's a frequent frequenter of the gym, who's also a ardent meditator, he was still visiting the gym when he came to stay here in Sri Lanka, but really struggling on going on Pindapata in the mornings. And I kind of think, well, what's the purpose of all the gym if it doesn't keep you fit enough? It's a different kind of exercise, isn't it? And I won't go into all of that because I don't know. I'm not sufficiently qualified to talk about it. But certainly walking that considerable distance each day, and as monks in these robes, but more wrapped up in them and in bare feet, is quite an exercise in itself. It's like you're a mobile sauna, treadmill, weightlifting, individual each and every morning. So that's enough. We don't need anything else. Okay. I think I'll go for this one, as I can't quite work out the... yes, I've got time for this one. I was trying to work out the time in my head, and I'm not very good with clocks and time these days, because we get up when the sun, just before the sun rises, well, in my case, quite a bit before the sun rises, and that determines the beginning of our day, and the end of our day is determined by the sun setting. And in this part of the world, that's pretty uniform throughout the year. So 6 a.m. is around sort of dawn, or sunrise. 6 p.m. is around dusk or sunset, and that's good enough. So trying to time myself in these talks has never been very successful. So I might give up with trying. It's been okay so far. Anyway, I'm still not convinced as your explanation of the deathless not being explainable. How do we know it's just not something that's been fabricated? I'm going to start meditating and find out for myself. Ordain, how many years would it take me to get to that point? So, I mean, personally, I don't usually refer to it as the deathless, but we were referring to Nibbana, the freedom from suffering, and what did I say? It's not being explainable. Well, of course, it's not of this conditioned existence. It's outside of this conditioned existence, and therefore cannot be compared or explained. And you're quite right, you should start meditating and find out for yourself, because this is what the Buddha tells us to do. And you're not convinced, well, nobody's trying to convince you. Neither is the Buddha in the Dharma trying to convince anyone, but showing them the path to experience it for themselves. So that's it. You've answered the question yourself. You're going to start meditating and find out for yourself. Now, how long will it take? Well, as long as it takes you to eradicate greed, hatred, and delusion through that practice of sila, moral virtue, samadhi, practicing meditation, and developing wisdom. Now, that's different for every individual. It could be many lifetimes, or it could be a few minutes. It depends how many previous lifetimes you've been practicing before. This possibly, if you're discussing the Dharma here, even in this format, in this way, is not your first lifetime that you've experienced Buddhism. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been attracted to it in this instance. So you're not necessarily a beginning. We've all come to Buddhism as a result of causes and conditions we put in place, whether it's just in this lifetime or in previous lifetimes leading to this one, this rebirth. And it's this rebirth that we're concerned with, what we do within this time, in the present moment, here and now. Not even the past, because that's happened. We can't change it. But anything we've done wrong in the past, we can determine to not make the mistake again, if we can possibly refrain from it. And from here on after, determine to increase our good karma, the beneficial causes and conditions for future beneficial rebirth, or even freedom from suffering within this lifetime and no more future rebirths. This could take, it could be just years, months, weeks, days, or it could be lifetimes. You never know. It depends on how much practice you've put in, how many of the qualities you have developed previously. So, immeasurable idea, how much, you can't really specifically measure or say how much greed, hatred, and delusion you have, but you'll have a general idea if you're quite a greedy person, or if you're a hateful person, or if you're a deluded person. You might not want to admit it, you might not even want to even admit it to yourself, but we all know, don't we, if we're greedy, or if we are hateful, or if we're deluded, and they are the indicators of the defilements that you have to eradicate before you're even going to begin towards becoming enlightened. So that's maybe some guide, I'm not sure. So if prayers don't mean anything, then why do monks send out silent metta, or brackets compassion, question mark? So metta is loving kindness. Compassion, the Pali word for that is karuna. So you might have heard of monks or practitioners radiating, sending out metta. Now, although it is described in the Kalyana Metta Sutta as radiating out metta to all beings, it is really to remind ourselves as to that is the quality we're developing within ourselves, loving kindness for all beings. So personally, I'm never radiating or sending out through prayer any metta. If I stayed in this room with the doors shut and nobody ever came near me again, I don't think anyone would experience any metta I might have for them. Any beings would experience any metta I might have for them. So that is just some ideas people have got or have. Personally, it says you tend to, oh, here you go. Okay. Wouldn't it not matter? Personally, I tend to disagree and think prayers or metta can help at least balance out the energy, but that's my opinion. Well, I think, wouldn't it not matter either? I think you're saying what I'm saying. You're developing, you can call it energy, whatever you like, but you're developing the quality of metta within yourself so that when you meet someone on the street, whomever they are, they will naturally appreciate that quality in you. They will see, sense, feel that quality in you through direct experience. It's not a radiation out or a magical thing that people are trying to do. And monks often might be using it as a warm-up to meditation. So sitting and maybe spending 5 or 10 minutes listing through, as is often done. And I've spoken on this at some length before, so I won't go into it again now. Because, if you think about it, that is the practice of metta, and that's it alone, then you're not really getting the point. The point is you're developing the idea within yourself, within your own, you're developing the quality of metta so that those beings, when you come across them, would appreciate it. You're not able to, however many monks, I know many people believe this and practice this and do this, and that's fine, but this is belief. It's not what I do. When I was a child, I had detailed memories of past lives. When I began speaking, and those memories were not pleasant for the most part, interesting because I didn't learn about reincarnation or rebirth until later, these memories had a profound influence. Is remembering past lives part of healing karmas? So you can't heal karmas. Balancing, it's more you balance out karmas. So, and then not directly. We cannot know from our past lives, all the past lives we've had, all of them, and what karma, that is actions, we have done to create causes and conditions for this rebirth. All we can know is that if we are keeping sila, the precepts, moral virtue, we are maintaining throughout all of our daily activities of body, speech and mind, we are developing through good actions positive karma. And if we continue with that and develop no negative karma, then eventually the good karma will outweigh the bad karma. We can't go back and specifically say, I did this, now I'm going to do this to repair that. Nothing repairs or heals. So even if you could remember all of your past lives, and most individuals other than the Buddha are unable to recall all of their past lives, then you wouldn't be able to address all the instances of bad karma, however big or small, equally, one for one, tit for tat. You can only do the ultimate you can do within this present moment, here and now, and here on after, to create positive karma and ultimately balance out in order that you have no further karma to repay. So as far as your remembrance of past lives and that coming up when you could speak and it helping you, I mean, I cannot speak about your own experience of that. Only you can know that, whether it's how real it is, whether it's just dreams or imagination. I mean, I have very confident feelings about things I must have done in a past life, personally, because I'm able to do them in this life and no one's ever talked to me about it, shown me how to do it or explained it, and it's seemingly outside of my natural environment or outside of the current causes and conditions that would enable me to be doing those sorts of things. But that's only my own sankhara, my own mental formations. It isn't concrete evidence of past lives. I can't say, I'm a monk now because I was a monk in a previous life. I can't be sure of that. I think it's likely, it stacks up, the odds are in favour of that, but I can't be sure. I can't have documentary evidence or proof of that. I can't recall a specific occasion in a previous life that I was a monk, but it's likely I was. But if you can recall such things, then maybe, and that's, but I can't speak to you about that because I don't know enough about it, other than I know that it's nothing to do with remembering past lives, is nothing to do with healing karma, because healing karma, you cannot heal karma, you balance it out, you address the balance. So, and I think on that point, I should leave it there until next time. I hope if there's something useful there, you can use it. If not, then just let it go. In the meantime, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.